welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your hosts, Buddy Sotello, Esquire, and Evan Ginzburg. Evan, would you like to introduce our fabulous guest for tonight?
Absolutely. Returning to the show, ECW's Angel Orsini, and she has all kinds of gold, and we'll talk about those belts and everything else later in the show. And we also have, for the first time, fitness expert and certified wellness coach Joy Nash, and their partners in a business together that we'll be discussing as well. And welcome, ladies. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So, Angel, can you tell us a little bit about those two belts you're sporting?
Yes, I would love to give a shout out to Spartan Championship Wrestling. I have successfully acquired and defended this belt with that organization, and Funhouse Championship Wrestling. I just recently won this. That was a little bit hard. I'm still nursing an injury on my ankle.
Do you mind if you could hold each belt up individually to the screen there? They're nice looking belts.
Yes, this is the Funhouse Championship Wrestling belt, and this is the Spartan Championship.
I like that one.
Belt.
I like that one. That's a good looking belt.
This thing is about 10 pounds. This is heavy. You do not want to get whacked with this.
Yeah.
It really is made of some serious metal.
Well, congratulations.
I come to Jersey to see her wrestle. Actually, I was up there. I came up there from the cold. I live in Florida, so I wanted to see her wrestle, and it was great. Her dad was there. It was awesome. It was fun. It's actually got some snow too, so it was a little bit more exciting than.
Joy, are you originally from Florida, or where are you from?
Oh, I'm actually from Rhode Island, that little tiny state that people forget about. They say, what did you say, Long Island? No, it's actually a state, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
No, you're made famous by Family Guy, for better or for worse.
Yes, and
you know they have a lot of Rhode Island jokes.
See, don't forget him.
So, how did you find yourself to become a personal coach and a fitness consultant?
Well, my mom was always a person that really was into, taking care of herself and exercising, and it kind of moved into having my best friend up the street from me that she was a workout, and her brothers worked out, and I saw Muscle and Fitness, and I saw Corey Everson and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing. So I dove into, that interest. And then when I lived in a different neighborhood that was very dangerous with my grandmother and my mom, at that time I was 13, and I said, Mom, can I have weights? And then it was just like, I fell in love. So I started progressively learning more and started training people when I was 19. So I just more and more as I went on, I got into the massage therapy part of it, so I can integrate the structural fitness with the massage therapy. So it's not just getting like muscular, it's getting healthy, because we do things repetitively so much that we don't realize the stress that we put on our bodies. So we need to, all of us, have a regimen of recovery and health that our bodies can internally, feel better. And, with the massage is lymphatic, and of course, structural, and the exercises that, that will balance you out. And this way you get older, you're going to be healthier. Because let's face it, you can be 50 years old and feel like you're about 200 years old. So, and I see people, and it's like, it just makes me more aware. So I really love what I do. That's why I'm excited about Angel and I, what our new business that we're going to be launching soon is teaching everybody what we know through our own experience, of health and fitness. And, I even had 10 or 12 years that I didn't work out. I had kids, I got married, and I was like totally from this single independent workout queen to this mommy with running around with 3 kids, you know? And it's like, and then I found myself fat, overweight, sick, depressed, miserable. And I got to the point where I was like, my ex-husband said, do you want a gym membership? And I said, at the time was my husband, oh, yes, I do. And that was it, 9 months, shredded off 40 pounds. And then it just excelled my spirit, my soul, to transform everything in my whole entire life, including the state I was in my life, you know, and just got out of it and really, you know, excelled to this place. And Angel and I reconnected again, and it's just been like, wow, you know, transformational, going, elevating more and more and more. So I'm excited, and I love what I do.
We Joy and I have similar philosophy. So health and wellness are not just about fitness and working out, but it's about working on stuff on the inside. So we talk about transformation, body, soul, and spirit, because we're very complicated beings. And a lot of times what we look like in our body is actually a reflection of what's going on in here. Right. And so we address that. It's not just changing your diet. It's not just.
I was going to say, oh God, I hope not. In a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's you have to also work on what's going on inside of you, because it actually, what's the most dangerous thing to human beings is stress and stress management.
Oh, absolutely.
Help happens on the inside of your body. It starts with your mind. And so that's why we our approach to wellness coaching is body, soul, and spirit. And we kind of break it down to people, because, you know, here you are, you're like, okay, I just want to change my life. Well, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? Maybe one person, you know, wants to quit smoking cigarettes and start getting healthy, but then maybe somebody else, they just want to quit drinking alcohol and really, you know, or there could be a lot of things. There could be relationship issues that are detrimentally affecting somebody's health and wellness. So what we do is we've developed a system to kind of get people to draw their awareness and kind of reflect on themselves and kind of figure themselves out. Because a lot of why everybody's acting out and angry is because people are afraid. People are afraid. Why? Because the world is changing so fast. Our worlds have been completely tossed upside down. And then when our world got tossed upside down with a pandemic, then now we have a war going on, right? And we have all these other issues that are destabilizing us after, you know, we've had pretty stable existences. And because of this destabilization, we're forced to change. And that's traumatic to a lot of people. And if they already had anxiety, they already had anger issues, they already had addiction problems, this kinds of atmosphere could push them over the edge. So that's why we really started working on this during the pandemic. We said we got to help.
Joy mentioned the word balance, and I've asked this question to many different people, and I always get a different answer. I practice DDP yoga 3 days a week. I go to the gym, and I also practice Tai Chi and Qigong. And if you ask the Tai Chi master, he'll say, do more Tai Chi. If you ask a, you know, avid gym goer, he'll say, go to the gym more. So I never seem to really get the answer, what's the right balance? You know, I'm not a kid anymore, I'm older. So, you know, everybody says the Tai Chi and the Qigong and the yoga are very good because it's lighter. But you guys are the experts, so I'm asking you both.
Everybody's an individual, you know, there's no cookie cutting, you know, even when I customize someone's, you know, whether it's a 12-week transformation, or it's, them wanting to get a bigger butt and thicker thighs. It's everybody's different.
Right.
And that's why there's got to be like an assessment, and you're going to see after a while how the person's going to respond, and then you have to just adjust it as such. Because sometimes, if like for me, if I have a 6.5 hour day that I'm working straight, my physical body upper body is going to be very stressed. So what am I going to do? If I go to the gym, I'm going to roll. I'm going to do recovery stuff.
Right.
And then I'll do my lower body exercises, and make sure that day that my calorie intake is like super high with, really good carbohydrates. So, and then the next day, let's say I don't work at all. I'm going to adjust it as such. And everybody's different. You might have an office job. So then you're obviously not going to eat as much as I would, as I'm physical. So yeah, everybody's different.
Now, is your program web-based, or is it a individual in-person consulting, or how do you manage this program, or what's the thought? How does it work, so to speak?
Our program is web-based, so we are just about ready to launch and start creating our community online, and then we're gonna do different webinars to get people started and start, them on the path to figure out. Really, we're not going to convince people that they have an issue with anxiety, or that they're not quite managing their food properly. What we're going to do is give people a starting point, and they can either self-study, and they can be supported through our forums and our show and our materials that we'll have on our social media, or they can choose to do the 30-day challenge, which is going to give them coaching on a daily basis through 30 days. But it's just a little piece each day to keep you motivated, right? So we also will have individual coaching sessions available for people, and that'll be web-based as well, virtual coaching. We're also going to do a streaming weekly show where that's going to kind of support everybody, no matter what it is. It's more like a smorgasbord of all the things that we do. So it's going to talk about meditation, and then we're going to actually do a workout, and people can work out with us. And we'll have a moderate and a advanced versions of that people can do. People are in control of the intensity that they participate. It's totally up to them. And then we'll do a food session where we make some food and show how to prepare some alternatives and some replacement things that interest people. And then we're going to do some positivity coaching where we have somebody that's a success story with a challenge that they've successfully overcome, and where they can share their secrets that help them. And then, then that'll basically be the show. We'll take some questions and answers. And we really think that that's, encouraging for people to go on their journey, and they can fit in with that show and find something interesting, learn something new, and get motivated and hungry for more.
And is there a target age? Or I'm assuming it's male and female. Is there a target age as well?
Yeah, it's for everybody.
Everybody, great.
And just getting healthier. Body.
I'm not trying to get something for free, but I do want to know, like, what would one of your food substitute suggestions be? Like, as an example of some of the advice that you give. I'm curious, like, tell me a food substitution thing that you do.
Well, sweeteners is one of them. We got, there's actually date sugar, and people don't realize that dates are very high in sugar, but they're low in glycemic. So, and they have a lot of nutrients. So they're actually a really good thing to eat as a snack along with like a raw walnut or almonds. And they say the combination together will actually have different effects of calming. So food is definitely medicine. You can use I think there's coconut sugar, so it's not just stevia and the other things that you see in the market. There's actually real, things that people are starting to really find out about, roots and different things that, that are natural, that aren't going to harm our bodies. It's still sugar, but it's not going to give us the spike and have like the bleaching that's also not good for our bodies as well. It's one of the number one killers is sugar. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Yeah, it hurts. Ouch. Because
there's a difference between sugar and refined sugar. So we have to start off with that knowledge base, right? So when we say sugar, we're talking about refined sugar. So there's sugar in the raw. That's not as bad for you. There's sugar that's naturally occurring in fruit, and that's not bad for you. Now, anything too much is not good, right? So all things in moderation. But you do need a certain amount of glucose, and that's important if you're training. If you're doing muscular exercise, which even Tai Chi, depending on how long you're doing it for, is you need to replace a little bit of glucose after glycogen gets burned through your muscles. So you need a little bit of glucose in recovery. Now, what you don't want to do is have a refined sugar, because that spikes up your body's response with some heavy duty hormones, insulin, and then that causes your systems are interdependent with each other. So it causes like a domino effect of other things that will go on in your body. And you really want to avoid all that, because that's not really a healthy state for your body. What's healthy is some really easily digestible glucose with maybe a little bit of fruit, or some agave, right? There's all different kinds of things. So we kind of, in our webinar, we start off explaining this and give people a nice foundation. And we have materials that go along with it that they can cross-reference as they're starting to become more aware of the food that they buy and the food they eat a lot of. What can they replace with healthier choices instead?
That's great. Let me just ask one quick question. I always hear people say eating healthy is expensive and eating crap is cheap. So how do you solve that dilemma where somebody's motivated to eat healthy, be healthy, and being able to afford it all? What are some tips there, maybe?
I think it's a lot more expensive now to eat meat if anybody's gone to the market, and when it comes down to it, if you shop right, you go to different stores that, have better, like even like Trader Joe's is a phenomenal store, and their produce is very cheap.
Really? Okay.
It's very inexpensive. And, in the long run, you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache, pain, and money.
Money at the doctors, yeah.
And once your body's sick, you're sick. And of course, at some certain things that you might have, like high blood pressure, you might be able to control that with right away. But some things are, I see it all the time. So it's a lot cheaper in the long run to actually eat healthy. And the thing is, if you look at like what we're going to do, show you recipes and like really things that you go, wow, I never thought of that. It's very easy. You just prepare your food, and you have healthy food, and you just the combinations of different things that you can use with, instead of going out to dinner and then you don't even know what you're eating and they're putting junk in it. And, in the long run, you're paying so much money for paying out for food, and we want to be smart with our money, all of us, unless you got a few Black American Expresses, but, we're going to teach you that too, is, that you can eat healthy and save money in the long run.
I do think there's an interesting dichotomy between, wrestling in the past, which were, cigar and cigarette, smoking, beer drinking, huge behemoths like the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser, and I mean, Greg the Hammer Valentine wasn't going to exactly make the cover of any swimsuit magazines. Sorry, that's my alarm going off. But how has wrestling and fitness been? Thank you very much. My son got the alarm there. Sorry. So I was just saying, how has wrestling and its approach to fitness changed from, the beer swilling types of the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s and 80s to where we are now with guys that are in such incredible, focused and tuned shape? If you wanted to explain how that approach changes what you do and what kind of advice you provide.
Well, I think it's a matter of just new knowledge, new information. When we become aware collectively, then we start to adapt to that new information. So I think it was more back then, it was more about style. And I don't think that they knew what we know now. I think they probably would have done it different if they did. I think people are just now starting to become aware of the fact that lifting weights, clean jerking and squatting and doing that for 25 years as much as you can, is killing your knees and your hips, dude, and your shoulders. Maybe, I have from the beginning, when I started studying kinesiology and physiology, I realized this, and from reading everything that I read at the time, which I read everything that was available at the time when I started in 1992, I realized that you have to cycle your workouts, and your body, because your body adapts, it's really best to. And if you only do one kind of working out, then you're only developing one kind of muscle. And my fitness is not just about how I look and about how I feel, but how I perform as a wrestler and a fighter. And so I realized I have to develop slow twitch to look big and muscular and to be able to pull something up, but I also have to develop long twitch muscle fibers, because I may have to fight for hours. Who knows? Did you ever see that movie, the Jackie Chan movie, Rumble in the Bronx?
Yeah.
He was fighting all night for his life, right? Yeah. Chances are that's not going to happen, but if it does, I want to be ready. I want to fight for as long as I can.
Wow.
But on a serious note, I think that has been successful for me. I am a product of that. I have longevity. I am still wrestling. I still perform with speed and I still move, and I can walk the next day. I'm fine, I don't know how everybody else is doing, but I happen to feel like I'm a product of my theology, my doctrine when it comes to fitness and health and wellness. So I happen to think maybe I might be on something.
It's interesting when you watch an old movie and you look at some of the actors who, weren't really young. I mean, they weren't really old either. So let me explain. So you'd see a guy, he looked like he was 70 or 80, but he was really 50 or 60 because he was smoking, a pack of cigarettes a day, drinking heavy, not exercising, not, eating crap. I come from a generation where they would say to us, eat plenty of red meat, eat a lot of white bread. They would tell you all the wrong things. Cigarettes are bad, but cigars aren't, like ridiculous stuff. And it killed a lot of people young, and it aged a lot of people terribly. So when you hear the expression today, 60 is the new 40, many times that's true. You see somebody 60, 70, and they still look good. It's amazing. So there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. Mind and body are connected, and diet, and put it all together. And let me say the other side of it. You know, I exercise 5, 6, 7 days a week. And last week I had 2 friends die, and I had no energy to exercise. I had like, you know, it just sucked the life out of me. I had 2 good friends die in 4 days. And then I broke into a rash just from the stress. Just from the stress. Mind and body are definitely connected. Definitely.
Definitely.
Boy.
And you're talking about, when we talk about the soul includes the mind, your emotions, so your feelings, your attitude, your perceptions, your beliefs, your likes and your dislikes, and your character. So when we talk about spirit, we're talking about your energy, what you're emitting. Some people call it energy, some people call it chi, some people call it spirit. That's what we're referring to. And also, just so everybody's clear, we're not talking about anything religious. You know, no matter what you believe, what your religious faith is, your spiritual orientation, we're not trying to change it. We're not talking about any of that. We're just kind of breaking down self so that people can become more aware of their triggers for why they binge eat or binge drink or whatever it is, you know.
Well, there's a reason they call it comfort food. Somebody had a bad day, bad experience. Somebody, you know, and I'm gonna eat 3 donuts, you know, and that's comfort food. Yeah.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, if you habitually do this, you're
You
creating.
will not be comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, the bloating becomes uncomfortable, right? And the
Well, people were so uncomfortable during the pandemic, and you know that was one of the things that people did first was, you know, put on the COVID-19. You know, they're saying, you know, they're putting on.
Or they made, actually, I think a lot of people made the excuse and just used it as an excuse, because there was a lot of people that actually lost a lot of weight. And I know in my neighborhood, I live in Florida, obviously people can go out and exercise and walk. I have a trail in the back, and it was so packed with people. It was unbelievable.
But for 2 years, all the gyms were
families with
closed
their-
down.
It was
You know,
great.
for 2 years, all the gyms were closed down, and
Yep.
people were not able to be anywhere close to anyone. And, you know, there were no classes, or at least all the classes were just online. And, you know, people had to go back to home gyms if they did it all. Or, as you pointed out, some people were so upset by it, they just figured, why even bother? You know, I'm going to be stuck inside all day anyway. You know, why even, you know, do any of that? And so I think maybe now people are getting back and realizing, oh, what did I do to myself for the last 2 years? You know, I got to do something to fix it. So you might be in the right place at the right time with what your program is all about.
Well, we hope so.
So tell the viewers how they could contact you, and when this is all happening, and anything else you guys want to plug.
Sure. Our website is elevatedliving.life. We're on Facebook, Elevated Living. It's connected to my fan page for my wrestling, the Angel Orsini. And I think the best thing to do is follow Joy and myself on social media, so that when we get ready to officially launch the live streams, we will be live streaming from all of our pages when we officially launch.
You haven't even told us what the name of the program is.
Elevated Living.
Elevated Living. Okay. And is it elevatedliving.com? How would is there a website for it?
Yes, elevatedliving.life.
.life. Okay.
LIFE.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Well, that's very unique too. Now, Joy, I did want to find out, do you have any background in professional wrestling? How did you find Angel Orsini? You know,
I was actually, I met her through a friend of mine, Rachel, and I was interested in getting into it. So I did do a little bit. I actually met some of, Liz, that was a very special friend of Angel's. So that was pretty exciting. But for me, actually, one girl that wasn't too experienced, she slammed me on the head, and it kind of like, I was like, do I really want to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, a big E can tell you about how that all turns out. So maybe you made the right choice.
Yeah. So I
The wrestler just broke his neck last week.
Yeah.
In
So
ring.
I'm more into acting. I'm more into the more, theatrical part of it, and backing up my best friend up there while she's flipping around. Just like the old days when we met and she was wrestling in like Miami. We go all over the place with her, and I would chaperone her, and it was great. I mean, I get off on watching the people in the audience, especially the kids. It's like, for me, it's a treat, especially seeing her flipping around. I'm like, oh my God, so cool.
There you go.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, I also have a website, fitness4joy.net, which is actually getting totally redone, and it's going to be fabulous. So I can start doing virtual workouts, and also some selling some of my special programs that I have, because a mother of 3 and being the transformation, I've learned how to really maintain myself. So I want to pass on that knowledge to everyone. So they can find me on fitnessforjoy.net, or you can just look it up on Google. And I'm very connected with my business page on Fitness for Joy. But remember, it's with the 4. And Instagram, Facebook, same thing, fitness, the number 4, joy.
Well, that's wonderful.
And Angel, you're going to be at the Icons of Wrestling convention in Philly, March 26th. And it's an interesting crew. Former boxing champion Michael Spinks, our mutual friend Pitbull Gary Wolf, and June Millington of Fanny, one of the pioneering female musicians, all-female band, in case you're not familiar with them, Fanny. And you're also inducting June Millington into the New England Music Hall of Fame on April 8th, I believe?
Not me.
Okay.
I guess the New England Music Hall of Fame is inducting her.
Okay. So,
but you were involved. You're involved with the New England.
I co-founded it, but I'm not involved with the business management of the business. I'm doing the March 26th event with them. Yes.
okay.
Well, it's glad to hear that's going along well. I remember you talking about it when you were on here the first time. So I'm glad to hear that's progressing well for you.
Yeah, I think they do great things. I'm really proud of them. They're really keeping the ball rolling, and they've done so many really good things for the Soup Kitchen in Connecticut. And then there's another organization. They raise money for Sales for Cancer. And it's just so beautiful that they're helping so many people. It's really great.
And it's great they support indie musicians, because it's tough, especially with COVID. The COVID shut the touring down basically for 2 years, and musicians really, I have a lot of friends who are musicians, they really struggled. So the New England Music Hall of Fame, support them, and support Joy and Angel's new endeavor. And anything else you'd like to plug before we wrap it up?
Well, yeah, I just want to point out the New England Music Hall of Fame does have their own fan page on Facebook. So definitely, like and subscribe. They're also on YouTube. The website, all of that information should be on the Facebook. So my website is angelorsini.net. And all of my social media is the Angel Orsini. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. I'm there, baby. And definitely, if you're in New Jersey, April 16th, I am defending this belt. I don't know who I'm facing yet. That will be in Roselle Park. And they can go to Spartan Championship Wrestling has their own Facebook page. and they are on Twitter, and they're easy to find, and Instagram.
Wonderful. And anything else, Joy, you'd like to mention to our fans?
No, that's pretty much it. It was just a pleasure being on your show. Thank you.
Same here. And you,
so
you,
much.
you two are walking inspirations. Angel's got the glitter, the belts. You're both looking sharp, looking great. And
I got my Harley shirt on. Wish I had a Harley. I can go out and ride over here in the 80-degree weather in South Florida. Hate to rub it in, buddy.
No, we're going to have some of that out here in the Bay Area this week. So we'll be right with you.
And let me just say one last thing. As somebody who goes to the gym and practices Tai Chi and Qigong, I think you both really have the right idea. Mind and body, body and spirit, combine it all. It's been a rough 2 years for a lot of people. It's not just about lifting weights. There's a lot going on for people. So
and I would hope as you further develop this program and have new ideas that you'll come back to our program and help inform our fans more about what the things that you continue to do to help improve their lives through your program.
Thank you. That would be great. We would love to do that. Yeah, we are going, our initial launch is going to be the webinar with the 30-day challenge, but we will definitely, as we go through that process, we are looking to solve problems, fulfill a need and really help people, because we do have a lot to offer for sure.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. You have a great weekend, ladies.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, it's just us now. Although those ladies are so lovely, I could spend all evening talking to them, to be honest with you. But we got some other things we got to talk about.
I was tempted to ask them about WWE straight out saying that they are only looking to hire very young people and wean them.
Yeah, from there. Yeah, not get them from the indies anymore.
So my thought, Angel's been doing this 30 years, and my thought is, well, is somebody young at 29 and old at 30 as far as the WWE is concerned? Because it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. There are guys like Bobby Fish who didn't really make it big until he was in his late 30s, and that's absolutely fine.
And yet Shane McMahon has a spot reserved for him at every WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
They give that message, but Stone Cold comes back. They say you're too old, but the Undertaker will probably fight in about 4 more WrestleManias.
Yeah, they'll suck every drop of blood out of you. And
if they think you're worth something, Lesnar is not a spring chicken by any stretch of the imagination. He's been wrestling for a long time.
Yeah, he's been out there 20 years. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's some guys that you can never, that can never do any wrong by Vince. And we're not done maybe even seeing Vince get in the ring.
Yeah.
He'll probably do it one more time just to say I'm the first 80-year-old to body slam the Big Show, something along those lines.
I was talking today about heel turns, great heel turns, and I mentioned Zbyszko on Bruno, Spiros Arion turning on Jay Strongbow, and I mentioned the Big Show's 32nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th turns, which were highly dramatic also. Speaking of veterans, I just want to do a quick plug for my friend Irish Mickey Doyle. I enjoyed this book.
And he was a good guest on the show.
Yeah, this is called Everybody Loves Mickey, Irish Mickey Doyle. And I finally read it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll say why. I've read many, many wrestling books, and you have the microfiche boys who obsessively list results and
we've talked about them on this show a few times.
Then you have the WWE books where everything is about some ridiculous pay-per-view or angle or TV angle. This book, you have a blue-collar guy getting in an old car. This is much like Dobie Maxwell was saying as a stand-up comedian on our show last week. He'd get in a car, and you hope the car makes the next town because the car's shot, you know.
Have you seen Better Call Saul?
I haven't.
Better Call Saul is like that, at least at the start. You know, it does for lawyers what Mickey Doyle does for wrestling. You de-glamorize it, and you make it much more something that people can relate to because of how decrepit, you know, most wrestling is that way. I mean, you know, the WWE, yes, it's like the NFL or Major League Baseball, but most of the time, you know, or when bands play the big arenas, you know,
but most of the time, stars, not the kids, for the stars.
Right. Most of the time, it's like the band that has to play in the dumpy bar somewhere where, you know, people are knifing each other in the audience and you know, people are smashing beer bottles over everybody else's head. You know, that's the kind of thing when you're doing indie wrestling. It's so unglamorous. That was maybe the thing that always amazed me.
Well, this was territories wrestling. And so he actually says to the penny, he goes, they gave me a $30 payoff, and it cost me $27.26 to get there. You know, and you go, wow, you know, this was not an easy road to take. And then he's talking, you know, I have a wife at home, I have a baby at home. My tag team partner was starting to climb the ladder, the California Hippies with Mike Boyette. You know, I had a tag team partner, and he's missing his woman back at home, and he's turning down opportunities. So then, you know, which blew my mind because I'm from this part of the country, he's actually wrestling for Bruno in Pittsburgh. Bruno was promoting in Pittsburgh, and Bruno was impressed with him because Mickey Doyle was a damn good wrestler. So Bruno's impressed with him, and, you know, you're one step from getting those shots at the Garden and really going to the next level. And Mickey's like, I'm making $200 a week. I can't feed my family. I gotta go to a different territory. You know, sorry, Bruno. So it's an interesting book because you really see the decisions and choices and the human side of it. It's not some glamorous pay-per-view in front of 80,000 people. In its own way, it's really one of the better wrestling books. And
more wrestling is like that.
Yeah.
Than it is like the WWE. I think a lot of people don't understand that. When they finally really, you're like people like you and I who've been on the other side can tell, you know, people who don't know wrestling, like, no, the whole idea of you know, it's worse than minor league baseball. It's worse than, you know, the dive bars. The indie circuit and the regional circuit back then was really inglamorous for a whole lot of guys that did it. It wasn't, you know, the enhancement talents of the world and the curtain jerkers, whatever you want to call them.
Well, Mickey Doyle wrestled main event, mid card, opening match. You know, it depended where he was and what.
But he wasn't the main event.
No, he was, and in certain territories he was.
Well, in certain territories, but you know, not the big ones where, you know, you're gonna pull in the huge draw.
He worked in Japan. He toured Japan. He worked in Florida. He basically did the territories, and
but we found out ourselves that Florida has like 51 different wrestling federations.
That's now, yeah.
Now, but even back then there were a whole bunch because, you know, everyone thought they could get in the business, and a lot of, you know, we know ourselves there are fly-by-night promoters who will, you know, overspend themselves into oblivion for one card or two cards, and then after that they realize how expensive it is. You know, how hard it is herding everybody together to do a show, you know, and how thankless it usually is. And then they drop it like a hot potato.
Well, I would say, I would guesstimate that 95% of indies lose money, possibly more than 95%, because I've seen one after another go under, for a variety of reasons, including, getting the mark price for talent and booking your childhood hero and, et cetera, so on. But in New York, as of a few years ago, maybe it's changed since, it costs at least $5,000 to run a card, So
Similar to California.
yeah, you could burn through a lot of money quick. And basically what happens, unless it's a big name who graces the small indie, which does happen, but if it's local talent, a lot of times it's pay as you will. Oh, here's $15 towards gas. Here's a couple of francs. Here's a beer. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, I've had to take wrestlers out to Burger King because they had Whoppers for $1, and it was the choice between, and I gave them $1 so they could get something to eat because it was that or the gas it was the choice between eating and having gas to go home, and a couple of guys would wind up sleeping in their cars till their girlfriends could get them money the next day, or put money in the account the next day so they have enough gas to get themselves home. So that sort of thing you've caught in the wrestler so well. I think that was one of the most poignant things, that somebody doesn't sleep in their van because they want to. They sleep in their van because they have to.
Yeah, it's a brutal business, and I would say whether it's, I'm going to make a general statement, but it's fairly accurate. Whether you're an actor, a singer, a rapper, a wrestler, a boxer, whatever the case may be, 90% will never pay the bills. Never pay the bills. Another 5% will, but still struggle. And then there's that small percentage that are going to climb to the top, who are really the exception to the rule.
But everyone thinks it's going to be them.
Yeah.
They didn't. Why are they doing it? Until you learn to love doing it for the sake of doing it, and you don't care whether you're making money. I mean, I've seen Christopher Daniels work some of the most broke dick shows in California that you could ever possibly.
But ultimately, he made a living in wrestling, which is good.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen him at Angels Camp where the number of wrestlers outnumbered the fans that were in the audience. This is Christopher Daniels we're talking about here.
But my point, where we started this conversation, was, if Christopher Daniels is 35, 40, 45 years old, he's still a master performer. Why should he not be, good enough for the WWE? It makes no sense to me.
Oh yeah, but they have room for Bad Bunny. They have room for a Bad Bunny. They can find a place for him in a WrestleMania. But no, Christopher Daniels, no, we don't have room. We don't have space for you there. And so while we have a few minutes left, let's reflect. At the very end of last show, I said Scott Hall was on life support. And it didn't take much more than a couple days later to hear the news that Scott Hall had passed. And I followed Scott Hall from the very beginning of his career. I remember him as American Starship Coyote, for God's sakes.
Wow.
That goes back, okay? Yeah. And I watched it. And remember, I told you that the AWA was a strong territory for San Francisco. San Francisco is a major territory of the AWA. So I saw a lot of Scott Hall matches in the Cow Palace and watched his career. I was always impressed with him until towards the end when he really did slow down a lot with the NWO and the Wolfpack and all 80 of the WCW wrestlers that were involved with the NWO, but he was part of that core NWO turn. And I will say one of the best title matches I ever saw was him against Bret Hart at Arco Arena for the Royal Rumble. And I was going to explain why that was for a second. And that is, Sacramento has always been sort of like a fifth-rate town in California, even though it's the capital. But I was living there at the time. The fact that the Royal Rumble was going to come in through Sacramento and Arco Arena, which, by the way, had its final day of existence yesterday.
Wow.
So, yeah, you know, it meant there were a lot of memories in there, including, you know, that Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon match for the title during the Royal Rumble. And that meant a lot to the people of Sacramento that A, we got a major pay-per-view there, and B, we had a major WWF title match. It was WWF then, you know, 93. We had a major title match in our town, not in San Francisco, not in LA, not in San Jose, not in San Diego. It was in Sacramento. And that was something I think still Sacramento, you know, the wrestling community looks at kind of proudly, that like we were the site of one of the earliest Royal Rumbles in WWE history. And it was a great match, by the way. It just really, the whole card was good. If you look at the Royal Rumble matches themselves, they were really good. And the title match was really fantastic. So your thoughts on Scott Hall?
I think if your name is attached to the greatest anything, you have a piece of immortality. That ladder match with Shawn Michaels, I mean, you could argue it was the greatest ladder match of all time. Well, I mean, it's a hard argument because obviously you haven't seen all of them, but it was a great match, period. And if it's the best ladder match of all time or close to it, his name will always be attached to it. It has over 1 million views on YouTube alone. It's a piece of immortality. The NWO was a huge deal, huge, and he was a great performer in his prime.
World Tag Champion with Kurt Hennig. A lot of people forget that too.
Yeah, they were good buddies. They're both gone. Yeah,
I know.
And yeah, I was saddened. I was saddened by it. You know, in his prime, and I saw him also with the AWA. They came to New York, New Jersey, briefly, and you know, the guy looked like Matt. He looked like
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck. He looked like Matt. Tom Selleck.
All buffed up.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so.
But then he made the transformation to Razor Ramon, which, even though he wasn't Puerto Rican, you know, people bought it, you know, and that was an interesting way for him to transform himself. But he really got into that character. It was really something that he was known for. And then, you know, he did battle a lot of personal demons. Unfortunately, you know, that whole NWO Wolfpack, you know, group with X-Pac and unfortunately, Scott Hall had a lot of drug and drinking issues too towards the end that I think were really costly.
Well, he did an interview on Real Sport with DDP and Jake Roberts on HBO a couple of years back, and he said at the time he had been in and out of rehab 12 times. So he had a tough life, and the business, his demons, whatnot, you know, you could see it caught up to him. But as a performer, you know, the guy was great. There's not a lot of big men that could move like him. I mean, he was a big guy, and he was agile. And yeah, man, the wrestling life is not for longevity. He was 63. Rick James, the singer, was 56. Those 7 years, that difference, it's like dog years. You know, these guys partied hard, and but you can't take away.
You sometimes say 60. You were saying earlier, 60 is the new 40, but for wrestlers,
60 is the new 80.
It's like the new 5,000 or new 500. It's stunning how many wrestlers die at right around 60 to 65. Between that age range is unfortunately.
Well, the thing everybody forgets, and I'm older than a lot. I've been watching wrestling literally 50 years, since 1972. What they forget is these guys used to wrestle in smoke-filled arenas. Smoke-filled arenas. That could not be healthy. You're in the middle of the ring. You're breathing in secondhand smoke from hundreds, if not thousands of people. That's not
Then
going
they
to
get in the car and drive 100 miles with guys that were lighting cigarettes and smoking them in the car, with the windows rolled
and
up.
drinking and doing everything else. So yeah, man, rough business, and RIP. Great performer.
Just another show, unfortunately, that we talk about somebody well before their time, or at least, before their time, going and having a rough go of it. It's the sad part about our show, and I hate for it to be the wrestling funeral show.
Yeah, pretty much every week, unfortunately, and
yeah.
which is another reason. I know we're running out of time. I'll wrap it up with this. Go out and support these guys if they're at an indie, or they're doing a signing or a convention,
or a GoFundMe, like you've mentioned,
or a GoFundMe. Let me
go ahead. Take your time. You have points to make, so make them.
You got wrestling fans who have thousands upon thousands of dollars for gimmicks and tickets and belts, and and they'll make a point. I would never throw money into a wrestler's GoFundMe because they're all scams. That's bullshit. You're a cheap asshole, and you don't want to support somebody in need. Yes, there have been occasional scams, but the vast majority are legit, and you should support them. You got $5,000 for WrestleMania, you money mark. Throw $5 into a wrestler's GoFundMe. It won't kill you. Really. And I've been on the road with these guys. They would, we'd sit down for meals, the legends. They would tell me horror stories about promoters ripping them off. And there have been widows of wrestlers chasing down their benefits years after they're dead. It's boxers and wrestlers and porn queens and anybody making a living making a living off their body generally do not get treated well, and often do not end up well. And yes, I understand the top WWE guys and the top AEW guys are making good money today, but that is not the way it is for most people in this business.
Well, let me take a second out and sort of point something out, which is it's different with wrestling than, say, like football or basketball or baseball, in the sense that once guys get out of college and they don't get drafted by the NFL, or they don't get drafted by the NBA, or they don't get picked up by Major League Baseball or Major League Soccer or hockey or whatever, they go on and do something else. But indie wrestling is this terrible, like, vulture that hangs around. Like, it never says you're too old or that you're too out of it to try to make something happen in our federation if you do the right things. You money mark yourself into a spot, or you can sell a bunch of tickets, or you're the grandson of the guy who owns the place, so they'll give you a cheaper the Fed a cheaper rate. Indie wrestling will always like try to lure in. We were talking to Dave Dutra a couple weeks ago, who said, like, one of the major reasons why APW decided to push him is that they thought he'd be one of the guys that would be able to pay the student fees that they wanted to charge him to enroll to get to the next level and be a better wrestler, but only through their program and through the paying them the privilege of such. So it's like pay to get yourself pushed in a way, and so indie wrestling does that. You don't see that with the NFL. You don't see that with Major League Baseball. You don't see that with basketball. They say once you're past a certain age and you were in college, you got to go do something else. They force you to go do something else. But wrestling doesn't. It will, I mean, for better or for worse, we have the Diamond Dallas Page situation where a guy who was in his 30s really got his big break in wrestling. And you know, we've seen other, you know, older guys, you know, Santino Marella and like other folks like, you know, who weren't, you know, the young, like total whippersnappers still get a shot and get to come in and make a difference. But, you know, it's still such a remote chance. But people are willing to do that to get their slice of fame. Fame is such an amazing drug. It's a bigger and more powerful drug than anything on the planet, if you ask me. That's why we have people doing crazy stuff for it, crazier than they do for any drug in the world.
There you go. And come to WrestleCon, WrestleMania weekend, meet Tommy Rich and the Rock and Roll Express talking about old legends, champions, and look for my review of Mickey Dog's book in the Pro Wrestling Post this week. I have a blog up there now that I just started, and check out my Evan Ginzburg's Old School Wrestling Memories page on Facebook. And by the way, I found out today that I was thrown off of Reddit. I don't really know why. They said you broke the rules. You broke the rules. So all I ever really post there is our show. So somebody said
we're a bunch of rebels over here.
Somebody said to me, well, it's because you didn't engage in their conversations. You broke the rules by just plugging the show. I'm not a big fan of Reddit. I mean, I see guys who, you know, they'll write a 1,000-word essay on some ridiculous WWE angle and all chime in and imaginary book it and, you know, what's going to happen at WrestleMania. And it's just not me. I can't sit there all day talking about this nonsense. So bye-bye Reddit, kiss my ass, and you know, if I never see you again, it'll be too soon.
It'll be too soon. I'm with you on that. Just but YouTube, we love you. So don't take it personally.
Yeah, we love YouTube.
YouTube and Facebook. We need both of you guys around. But the rest of you guys, yeah, you can all go. And Anchor FM. Those
you broke the rules. And while I'm on this subject, this is almost comical. By sheer coincidence, I was watching the new West Side Story with my wife last night, and it's a masterpiece, Spielberg. It's a masterpiece. Oh my God, it's beautiful. So I go on Facebook afterwards. Some woman is writing, she watched 48 minutes of West Side Story and had to make a huge list of all the things she hated about it. Okay? 48 minutes into a 2.5-hour movie. She couldn't even wait for the movie to end to trash it. Here's the irony. Stephen Sondheim, the composer, actually said in an interview just before he died, he said, I prefer the new one to the original. And they're both great. Apples and oranges. They're both great. But I'm just saying, the composer said how much he loved this, and there's some idiot on Facebook writing a 1,000-word essay on why she hated it 48 minutes into the movie before she's even seen the whole movie.
Pearls before swine, my friend.
Casting pearls to swine. That's right.
Pearls to swine, my friend. Anyway, we'll see everyone next week. Thanks so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.